Can we talk, guys? This is Mrs. Klein.
You there? It's Mrs. Wilbren. And we're here with your third podcast for political developments in the early republic. We still have the same guiding question. How did the Federalists and the Republican visions for the United States differ? Now, in our last section, we talked about the challenges facing the United States in its first few years. We're now going to focus more on political divisions between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson and how that led to the formation of political parties.
Yes. All right. So George Washington doesn't stay president forever. So in this section, we're going to figure out what happens after he retires and then also how that contributes to the growth of political parties. All right. In George Washington's farewell address, he warned that political disagreements could weaken the nation. He warned against the formation of political parties.
Yeah.
But nobody listened.
He also gave parting advice on foreign policy, relations with the governments of other countries. He urged the United States to remain neutral because agreements with foreign nations might work against American interests.
All right. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison debated with Hamilton about how to interpret the Constitution and on economic policy. Hamilton favored the British government and opposed the French Revolution. Jefferson and Madison thought the opposite. Hamilton wanted a strong central government. Jefferson and Madison thought such a government would lead to tyranny. Finally, Hamilton wanted an America in which trade, manufacturing, and cities grew. Jefferson and Madison wanted an America of planters and farmers.
These differences on foreign and domestic policy led the nation to form political parties. A political party is a group of people who try to promote ideas and influence government. It also backs candidates for office. Jefferson and Madison founded the Democratic Republican Party. This party reflected their belief in democracy and the Republican system. Hamilton and his supporters formed the Federalist Party.
Okay, all right. So after Washington leaves, John Adams takes office. Okay, all right. In 1796, the Federalists chose John Adams as their candidate for president. The Democratic Republicans chose Jefferson. Adams won the electoral vote for president. Since the Constitution said the runner-up should become vice president, Jefferson, Adams' chief rival, became vice president. Therefore, the country had a Federalist president in John Adams and a Democratic Republican vice president in Thomas Jefferson. Okay, all right. That doesn't sound like it's going to work out too well.
That doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Now, problems with France. When Washington left office in 1797, relations with France were tense. The French began seizing American ships to prevent them from trading with the British. Adams sent Pinckney, Elbridge Gerry, and John Marshall to Paris to meet with the French Minister of Foreign Affairs. The French ignored them until 3 agents, later referred to as X, Y, and Z, told the Americans that the minister was ready to hold talks if the Americans agreed to loan France $10 million and pay the minister a bribe.
I think that's called quid pro quo, right? Okay, all right. The Americans refused. A report of this incident became known as the XYZ affair. In 1798, Congress canceled its treaty with France and allowed American ships to seize French vessels. Congress also set aside money to expand the Navy and Army.
Yeah. Okay. This all leads us to the Alien and Sedition Acts and eventually peace with France. The conflict with France made Adams and the Federalists popular with the public. Democratic Republicans criticized the Federalists. To silence their critics, whom they identified as newspapers and new immigrants, the Federalist Congress passed the Alien and Sedition Acts in 1798. The acts targeted alien immigrants who were not yet citizens. One of the acts outlawed sedition, or saying or writing anything false or harmful about the government. The Federalists clamped down on freedom of speech and the press.
My gosh, that's like Bill of Right number 1, right? That we need to have like freedom of press, freedom of speech, yet second president says no to that.
Yep.
Okay, all right. If you're going to say something unfavorable to me, then we're going to shut you down. All right, Democratic Republicans fought the Alien and Sedition Acts by developing a theory called states' rights. According to this theory, states had the right to judge when the federal government had passed an unconstitutional law.
Mm-hmm. Resolutions, or statements of belief, written by Jefferson and Madison, passed the Kentucky and Virginia legislatures in 1798 and 1799. These stated that the Alien and Sedition Acts violated the Constitution. No other states supported the resolutions. Congress repealed the Alien and Sedition Acts and let them expire within 2 years when the Democratic Republicans won control of Congress.
Okay, then Adams opened talks with France and peace was made. The treaty, called the Convention of 1800, cleared the way for American and French ships to sail the ocean in peace. Adams' actions made him many enemies, and he ended up losing the presidential election of 1800 to his chief rival, Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, you guys. So in the election of 1800, two parties had candidates. I already just let you know that Thomas Jefferson ends up winning, but the two parties that had candidates in the presidential election in 1800 were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. The Democratic Republicans argued that the Federalists' Alien and Sedition Acts violated the Bill of Rights. The Federalists called the Democratic Republicans radicals, people who take extreme political positions, and we need to be careful of them, right?
Mhm.
The Federalist candidate, President John Adams, lost the election, though. But there was a tie between two Democratic Republican candidates, Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Okay.
Getting exciting.
Yes, it does get exciting. And Alexander Hamilton is involved. Yes.
According to the Constitution, the House of Representatives had to choose between Burr and Jefferson. The Federalists, however, still controlled the House of Representatives. It was true that the Democratic Republicans wanted Jefferson as their president. Even so, the Federalists would decide the winner. Members of the House of Representatives voted 36 times before finally electing Jefferson as president. Burr became vice president.
Yikes. Bitter, bitter. You guys are going to love listening to some Hamilton songs all about that.
Yeah,
All right.
it's so fun.
All right, you guys, take it easy.
Nighty night.